My name's Anthony, and for those of you that don't know, I decided to do a triathlon across the planet. For those of you who are new to the channel, feel free to check the link in the description below to check out what it is and why it is that I'm doing this. It should help with following the storyline of ATW coast to coast and the general consensus for the video of the day. With that being said, I'd like to thank you all for checking out the video, and I hope you enjoy. And before we get started, I just want to cut to a live feed video real quick so I can explain something to you guys. What's up, guys? Before we get started, I just thought I would add into the video that what's going to be on the screen, all the videos are going to be different workouts, and they're all pretty good workouts. Most of this is going to be on back and chest day, so if you're looking for new workouts, please feel free to check the screen. You should be able to find some workouts that suit you a little bit better than the standard ones. All right, let's get in the video. Okay, so I'm going to be honest. I don't cycle, and I never really have. When I was a fat 12-year-old, I used to ride a BMX bike 4 sizes too small for me, and I still couldn't make it more than 4 to 5 kilometers without having an asthma attack. 17 years later, I can look at Apple One as something that I'll most likely be completely fine for. It's the country I'm from, and I'm starting with a GPS completely fresh, so it's almost a walk in the park. Like, I can probably get from California to New York City without a GPS. None of those are good things. All of those are going to be negative variables that are going to destabilize my ability from properly completing coast to coast. However, if I train properly, eat properly, and start coast to coast in the way that I'm anticipating, then everything should be okay, meaning that I'll be completely fine to start in the country that I'm comfortable in. However, without getting too off tangent, I thought I would start by annotating on each of the states that I'm going to be passing through. From the start of San Diego to New York City, I'll be passing through a total of 13 states, dwindling down to around 1 state per day. The plan is to hug the southern border of California, just north of Mexico, through Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Arkansas, Mississippi, Tennessee, Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and New York. At an average of 320 kilometers per day, my body should burn around 8,000 calories, and with a base metabolic rate of 2,350, it should increase the total to around 10,500 before external variation from cold climates, improper hydration, and a lack of metabolic consistency from eating large amounts of food. While in the desert, I can't pack much water, so I'm at the whim of where I'll be. Because of the temperature change from around 20 centigrade to -8 centigrade, my body's going to exhaust more cortisol than it should, making the total amount of energy expended around 52,000 kilojoules. Cycling is pure kinetic energy, and the more aerodynamically balanced my body is, the better it will be for energy stabilization, which is why it's best to measure cycling in kilojoules. It will ultimately be the most precise form of measurement when converting direct kinetic energy for calorie stabilization. Over the duration of Apple One, I'm going to have to battle extreme temperature changes, temperament issues from excitement, and adjustment syndrome, all of which will aid into the dramatic weight loss I'll suffer over the duration of coast to coast. Those are just the start to the things I will need, which can help me stay in a functioning cognitive process. If I'm not careful, I'll go through a loss of awareness, which is when the mind hyperfixates on information and can't draw itself back to states of prior awareness. It can be the precursor for a major loss of weight, which can ultimately handicap me for the entire duration of the challenge. Focus and awareness are equivocal, so if both aren't sustained coordinatively, I will lose one at the expense of another, which is how confusion occurs, and confusion in the ocean can cause me to go overboard. The diet for coast to coast is going to be broken down into an indirect and direct diet plan. The indirect plan will be consistent across all of coast to coast and allow for my body to fall back on some level of foundation. As I get closer to the completion of each checkpoint, I can increase the percentage of the indirect diet plan to account for restabilization, which will occur at each of the corresponding checkpoints. As for the direct diet plan, it will be what is going to be considered as required for the health and safety of my body and its functions, which is going to be how and why I'm measuring in kilojoules for the duration of Apple and part of Aquarius. As for the indirect diet plan, it will consist of a base oil, fat, protein, grain, and sugar. Therefore, for the base oil, it's going to be MCT oil, as it's a medial oil and can give me a good binding factor for sunlight exposure. For the fat, I chose coconut oil, mainly because it's grown in a really complex environment and it'll keep me stricken towards the ocean. For the protein type, it's going to be mass gainer, collagen peptides, and chicken. Mass gainer to help with calorie stabilization, collagen for my ligaments and tendons, and chicken because it's a good protein staple. For the grain type, I chose rice because it's basic and it can bind to cholesterol, which I'll be adding packets of into my food every single meal. As for the sugar type, I chose Nutella. It's filled with multiple different types of glucose, has a monounsaturated fat, which is a good binder, and is calorie dense enough to be able to eat fast without having to meal prep or sit down and take a break. All of these will help aid in the efficiency of calorie expenditure and psychological stabilization for when I'm transitioning into a new environment. As for the direct diet plan for Apple One, which, if you weren't sure, is the name for Checkpoint 1 of Coast to Coast. Therefore, and so, the fat base is going to be vegetable oil. The processing of vegetable oil is extremely complex and filled with harsh forms of organics, which can help to aid my body while stabilizing itself at the start of Coast to Coast. I know it sounds psychotic, but it's better to try and keep my body immobilized in the start for as long as possible to remain at a stable psychological and physiological level. The protein base is going to be turkey. Turkey is one of the only known animals that can't convert glucose into its tendons. It's because their bodies are larger than their legs, so their diet converts glucose into a form of complex carbohydrate, making it very difficult to burn, and will be a savior for me in America. As for the carbohydrate type, I'll be using crackers and oxidated bread. They're basic, lightweight, and are a good source of carbs. Finally, for the sugar type, I'll be eating candy bars and honey. Now, I'm going to be burning 500,000 kilojoules, which is roughly 120,000 calories over the course of America. That roughly equates to around 35 kilograms of dead weight food. So, to combat that, I'm going to be bringing only freeze-dried food and a few kilograms of oils and Nutella. Ironically, I didn't actually have the lard idea until after I was scouring the depths of the internet on different types of freeze-dried foods. I'd soon and quickly realized that freeze-dried food is almost and around the same area as standard food, so I had the idea to grind it up, and as I had the idea to grind it up, I had an instantaneous idea to use the grinded up food as a binder to make a form of lard. As for the workout plan, I chose to keep it simple. There's just no need to train every single day in each of the event types. Because once I start an opposing event, I'll lose any and all of the trained foundations and go into an intense form of stress known as cognitive inversion. Where and that's where my mind believes it's more prepared than it is, which can lead to catastrophic destabilization from an immense amount of confusion. The main part of training is going to consist of balance workouts to stabilize my core for long duration cycling, so bicycle crunches, hip thrusts, Muay Thai, and various other forms of kinetic stabilization can help to increase my long-term physical stability without generating too much hypertension from cortisol activation while norepinephrine is supposed to be rushing through my body. If the way I looked at it was, is if I can figure out a workout that I can do every day that's beneficial for all four of the major events, then I'll most likely be successful. If I focus on one dynamic too much, it'll cause my body to go hyperexergonic, leading to an extreme amount of weight loss. Even over the course of 12 days, I can still lose up to 8 kilograms, which can lead me to fail almost immediately because of the extreme off balance of my body's gross capability. Running on a treadmill and cycling on a bike will be beneficial, but only for training the success foundations of actually being able to ride on a bicycle. It won't be the ultimate determiner for any outcomes here. It'll ultimately only end up hurting me. Consistency allows for comfortability. And however good that is, to properly train for this, I'd have to train in multiple places around the earth, and I don't have money like that. And even if I did, the complex nature of it would not only make my college studies impossible, but it would take me days to readjust, and I'd wind up forgetting to make YouTube videos, doing my homework, or training the way I need to train to make sure that I keep my martial arts foundations and my physiological foundations. So I just have to work with what I have and suffer the consequences later. Focusing too much on cycling will only hurt me in the Pacific, so starting in a negative state is the best thing to do. It offers a good start opportunity in southern San Diego and can allow my body to catch up with itself as opposed to lose itself on Apple II and the following checkpoints. Basic cycling will just keep my body in rhythm. Believe it or not, force compression from high tempo kicks can increase frequency absorption in the abdomen, which can help with regulating my body stability and allows for critical states of balance throughout all of the checkpoints. While, yes, it's a focus on the cycling aspect, it does help with mitigation of extreme stress while under heavy weight, which is a form of drag in this scenario, which, when I'm regarding cycling, is a form of drag in this scenario. While yes, aerodynamic drag is still a major component of cycling, the actual kinetic force required to keep up with the proper cycle tempo and balance with an extra 20 kilograms of weight will ultimately cause a lean in the form of a cycle drag or a displacement drag. Physical balance training and balance awareness is going to be the most crucial and important part of Apple One. The reason why I say physical balance training because if my core isn't properly activated throughout the entire duration, my body's going to wind up expending needed biochemicals to stabilize my functions to the manner that they need to properly coordinate through the entire country. Whereas proper cycle balance will help mitigate any type of offset requiring extra abdominal force to counteract and stabilize any type of thermogenic burn. If my cycle is off by 5% on balance, then every single kilometer is 1.05 kilometers. And over the course of 4,600 kilometers, that comes out to about 2 to 4 kilograms of dead weight that I wind up losing. That's 4,600 kilometers out of 38,000 in total. That roughly equates to about 12 to 15%, meaning that my body would wind up losing around an extra 30 kilograms over the entire duration if I follow that trend, which not only would be about 65 pounds, but would wind up killing me in one way or another. This is one of those times where I'm subtly reiterating the fact that focus and awareness are equivocal. That can't be equivocal. So while, yes, proper physical and key attunement is necessary to get myself from point A to point B, if I'm not careful and aware of what's actually going on, it will ultimately wind up dominoing itself in a complex and compound mannerism, which will end up decaying itself before I can get to another point, meaning I'll most likely either wake up in the middle of the Pacific after a few days or not wake up at all. That's one of the things in military and combative training that they stress over and over. Don't make things more complex than they have to be. If you do, it will wind up hurting you. And right now, I'm making it as complex as it has to be, which is why you're hearing that equivocality in my communication. Going back to each of the states, as a pass-through point, I broke each state down into a time referencing to better understand the amount of distance that I'm going to be covering per day. As for the time duration through each state, it should take me around the area of 36 hours to get to Phoenix, Arizona, 48 hours to get to Albuquerque, New Mexico, 28 hours to get to the middle tip of Texas, 24 hours to get back to Oklahoma, 55 hours to get to Memphis, Tennessee, 24 hours to get to Nashville, Tennessee, 30 hours to get to Roanoke, Virginia, 30 hours to get to the northern tip of Virginia, 32 hours to get to the final checkpoint of Virginia to New York City. This puts the total cycle to around 12.7 days at somewhere in the area of 4,668 kilometers, which roughly translates to around 3,000 miles. I assume it to be somewhere closer to the area of 15 days because once I reach North Tennessee, the terrain begins to get extremely mountainous, which is way different than the Southeast. The terrain is either constantly uphill or constantly downhill. Very rarely is it steep. Unless I'm passing through a terrain area like Big Bear or 29 Palms, but that is going to be way off the beaten path. The only positive here is really going to be the fact that I don't need to make any checkpoints. Aquarius has like 6 different checkpoints, and for good reason too. So that's not something that I'm really upset about. I'm just saying it's kind of nice having no checkpoints to start. It's going to get progressively colder as the distance across America increases, so I'll need to make sure I pack for both temperaments. It should be somewhere around the area of 70 degrees in South California and can be as cold as around 0 degrees in the last 2 to 3 days of cycling throughout the country. If I had a way for you guys to convert Celsius to degrees, I would give it to you. Like I said, for pounds to kilograms, just multiply kilograms by 2 or divide pounds by 2, and you have a general level of measurable reversion. 10 kilograms is 22 and a half pounds, so 2 kilograms is basically 4 pounds. Whereas Celsius, it's like the conversion, it doesn't make any sense. It goes up and it works on a frequency or something. My plan is to vacuum seal all of the cold weather gear and keep it stored away at the bottom of the pack for as long as possible. So I'm using visual estimation to determine the actual amount of area that I need. So if my bike is perfectly level, it should equate to somewhere around 4 to 5 kilograms of dead weight that I save. I can't be wasteful here. Belligerence will only lead to a loss of necessary weight that my body needs to survive. If not, I'll black out in the middle of Aquarius, and that will kill me. It's going to be extremely easy to just sit on the serotonin and dopamine high because I'm in the country of my birth. I'm going to be just starting out. I'm going to be comfortable, cool, calm, and situated. I'm going to know the entire country, and it's going to be in a temperament that's considered moderate. So every single sign feels normal when this is not anything considered remotely close to normal. It's why these videos are not recommended for people below the age of 18. And anyone who is, I'd recommend asking your parents if it's okay because this can be a little dangerous. I'm still working on gathering enough funds to be able to afford the entire completion of Coast to Coast. However, for the cycle, it's sitting at somewhere around 6,500 US dollars. That somewhat includes the drone. I split the cost of the drone up to all of the checkpoints to try and mitigate any type of off balance. Like I said, balance is crucial here, and if I'm off by the smallest amount on any one of these vectors, it will hurt me. I have about and I will have about 45 kilograms to 50 kilograms, which is about 90 to 110 pounds of dead weight to lose over the duration of this before my body just shuts itself down. So if I use all these proper dietary plans, these core workout plans, and all of these balance plans, my body should really only lose about 20 kilograms in total, which is about 45 pounds. If I'm anticipating to start at 215, then 45 pounds really isn't that much. And you can probably see the difference in my voice. It changes drastically because my mind's hyperfixating on different variables that may allow for a positive outcome. It's called information overload, and it usually helps when you're stuck or brick-walled with a situation or scenario that you can't generally understand. So yes, learning how to cycle is important. However, when you get to a certain point, it thresholds itself and it becomes actually a negative variable in your key to success. It's one of those things, it's like, does a professional fighter have to train every day to stay a professional fighter? No. In this scenario, it's a little bit different. It's like, does a professional fighter need legs to be able to fight? Type of thing, which is why it's so confusing to start. It's the reason why I'm making these videos right now, because it's a good way to look back one day and go, oh, well, I was acting like this or I was feeling like this, and I can use that as a positive factor to try and help and reassociate myself to where I was and what I was doing. While, yes, for something like this, any training is good training, it's not really something that can be looked at in that rhetoric. It needs to be done concisely with specific variables to account for each type of strenuity over the course of each event without putting too much emphasis on any one of them. Because if too much emphasis is put on one of them, the rest of them will all fail, causing my body to suffer at the positive checkpoint
and have no idea what's going on at the negative checkpoint. Anyway, that pretty much does it for this video. It was a little bit longer than I would have liked it to be. However, that's because of the indirect diet plan and trying to explain all the little bits of formalities. So each video should get progressively less and less until it stabilizes into around a 10-minute video. So if you're here and you're watching these videos consistently, good on you. It will only help you in the end, and you'll be way ahead of the game. So with that being said, I'd like to thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.